What's up, guys? Jairo from the Grind Fitness Training Systems, and welcome to another topic. Topic today is mental fatigue in combat sports, how to train cognitive endurance. So, a lot of people don't, a lot of fighters, guys that are like competitive, whether you're a recreational person and or actual amateur and or professional athlete, mental fatigue really will mess with your performance. So this is something that you have to be a little self-aware, because it's not just the stress of fighting, but it's also the stress of life. And mental fatigue, it slows your reaction time. There'll be times where you might lose a fight, even though you're quite physically fit, and it's all because you're just not in the right headspace. And so you got to understand it's a valuable piece that I think a lot of fighters don't think about, that they don't really focus on or lean on. So what is mental fatigue? It's basically CNS exhaustion, usually common in very high volume training and or fight prep. Now, when it says CNS exhaustion, there's two different ways you can actually do it. There's also a physical CNS exhaustion, where you may overtrain your nervous system, that also will run down your timing and run down your body. That's not nearly as mental fatigue. It's not really mental fatigue, but it's part of mental fatigue, if that makes sense. Mental fatigue can also be stress issues, things like that, where you're not feeling confident. Somebody close to you passed away, things like that, where your mind is heavy, not just your nervous system, because your mind and your nervous system work in conjunction. Why this matters? Because if your CNS is off, if your mindset is off, and you're having a lot of mental fatigue, you're going to be slow with your counters. You're going to be making bad tactical decisions when you're actually fighting. You're going to go left instead of right. Your timing's going to be a little bit off. All of us have felt it. If you've been doing combat sports long enough, we have felt it when it has nothing to do with us physically, and it has something to do with us mentally, because mental fatigue will reduce your physical performance. So there's some tools that you can add into your regimen, and I guess you could classify it as recovery, because it's not only going to help your body physically, but it's going to help your mind, which is extremely important, because the mind and the body actually work in conjunction. I usually have a saying: if the mind's not right, you work on the body, and if the body's not right, you work on the mind. They're basically yin and yang of the spirit of who you are as a human. Okay, so the very first one is cold exposure, super popular now, like ice baths, because it builds resilience of the stress. Another benefit, I guess it increases norepinephrine, which basically wakes you up. That's not why I do it, if I do it, because I really don't like doing it, but I've done it before. But when you do it, it also will force you to learn how to breathe. And because it's under such an extreme stressor, that you're forced to learn how to calm the nervous system down and how to calm your breathing down. And breath control equals mental control. So one of the biggest things that I personally have experienced as I've gotten older is what's called deregulating. So when I was in my 20s, all of us, when we're in our 20s, when we're young men, we're basically brand new to the planet. Our hormone levels are high. Our recovery is really high. And so what ends up happening is you deregulate very well. In other words, you're at a very high level of training, and your body goes back to zero very, very fast. As you age, that degree of back to zero gets a little worse. So you don't learn, you have to learn how to tell your body not to panic. So what I tell a lot of the training clients that I have, and I personally do it, is when you're maxing out your effort level physically, it's taxing your mind as well. And what ends up happening is that your body panics and thinks that there's a lion trying to eat you. Sounds kind of crazy, but that's what happens. So you have to learn through breath to calm your mind. And once you calm your mind, you can literally tell your heart rate, calm down. You can tell your breathing, relax, I'm okay. And when you're able to do that and your body's able to go back to zero, you can then increase the work output again and endure round 2, round 3, round 4, round 5, and so on. Those are things that you need to learn to do. And one of the best ways to learn it is through cold exposure, because that extreme temperature is going to force you to learn to get control of your breath, which will then calm your mind and allow you to endure the cold exposure. Okay? The second one is zone 2 cardio. If you don't know what zone 2 cardio is, honestly, Google it. It's basically getting your heart in a particular zone, maintaining the zone. There's a bunch of the zone is kind of big. There's some people that say do it this way. There's some people that say do it this way. Do what you think is best and what's easiest for you to do, and then get within that zone. So what I tell all of my clients, what I tell all the guys that I train with, zone 2 training does a bunch of different things. One of the things that it does is it boosts cerebral blood flow and neuroplasticity. What that basically means, it feeds your brain. It makes your brain, think of it as dexterous. So your brain is not only being fed better, but it's basically communicating within itself better and understanding movement better, which means that this literally will translate to your skill in your combat sport. Okay? At the same time that it does that, it also builds mental stamina. Because I don't know if anybody's ever done road work before, or anybody that runs like a marathon or a half a marathon. Dude, it sucks. There's some points in there that you're battling yourself, because you're that little monkey mind that all of us have that says, this doesn't feel good. My hips are tired, my knees are tired, my ankle is sore. Those are things that you basically need to endure in order for you to do that actual activity. So zone 2 cardio teaches you how to keep that voice at bay, so that you have that mental stamina to push into round 2, into round 3, into round 4. But the beautiful part is you're learning that, and you're increasing your aerobic base. And when I mean aerobic base, what zone 2 cardio does, it literally expands and creates elasticity of the aorta, which is the main ventricle of the heart. So as your heart is pumping blood, the ventricle gets bigger, which means that every time your heart pumps, it's able to pump more blood per stroke, which in turn feeds the rest of your body, which in turn increases oxygen to your muscle tissue, which in turn will help you get better at your combat sport, whatever it may be, which is why it helps with recovery. And then the last one is that it doesn't force you, but it helps with nasal breathing. Nasal breathing is everything. Anybody that tells you anything other than that doesn't know what they're talking about. All of us. That's why I like the most recent fad with mouth taping, so that way you're forced to nasal breathe when you sleep. I mean, they've done studies where it literally it changes your face. So you actually get better looking, especially as a guy, if you nasal breathe, which that's crazy. But yeah, the bone structure changes to the way the airflow goes within your nasal cavity. So it'll literally change your bone structure. But on top of that, you learn how to breathe better, which is a good thing, because that translates to everything. And then the very last one, which most of you say you'll do, but I know none of you will do, because even me, that I do this for a living, I say I do this, but I kind of do this. But this is actually really, really important as well, which is task switching drills. Okay, so you're doing stuff like a reaction ball plus footwork. So let's say you have a ball and you're doing kind of like handball movement. And then right after that, you're on the agility ladder. You're basically doing 2 different extreme movements for your upper and lower. And you're doing a cognitive drill, taxing your CNS, but switching it up to where your brain is going, oh, we're no longer working with our legs, we're working with our upper body, and vice versa. Because that will translate to your timing when you're doing your combat sport. The other one is striking plus color cues. Those are things where I don't know if you've ever seen the little devices with lights on them, and then you can set them up on the ground, and you can do run drills where they're colored differently. So you go green, red, blue. So you're doing a particular activity, but then you're also adding the eye aspect of the brain helping with the pattern. So you're not just doing physically, because if you're any good at your sport, there's going to be a certain movement that you're going to do that you're not going to have to think about. Your body does it. There's no brain power attached to it. But doing stuff where you're doing striking plus color cues, now your eyes are involved. If your eyes are involved, it communicates to your brain. And then if it communicates to your brain, it communicates to your spine, which communicates to the body. So you're not just doing physical movement, you're ingraining the mind with the physical activity. Okay, guys? So these are three different tools that you can do. I think these are probably the 3 best tools that you can do. This one you should be doing no matter what. This one, hopefully you do this at least once a week. And this one depends on, how tough you are, because this is hard to do on a consistent basis. If you can do it daily, you're a better man than me. If you could do it once a week, that's amazing. If you could do this once a month, that's good enough in my view. Now, are you going to get more benefits if you do it more frequently? Of course. But life is life. So do your best to do this as a high frequency as you can. But I understand the difficulties of this because I personally feel it as well. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Like always, comment down below if you have a question. Shoot me a DM. Basically, if you have any questions, any comments, anything, shoot me a message. I'll try to respond as fast as possible. All right, guys. Thanks for watching.